This is Tom from BlackToad Studio, and this is my 2,200 points of Red Scoprions for a Planet Strike game for the Planetfall mission. So here is my army, starting with the HQs in the middle here. We have Cullen the Risen, we also have a Severin Loth and a Librarian. Coming over to the troops section over here, we have two tactical squads, all armed exactly the same, so two melter guns in there, and then both the sergeants are just kind of a chainsword and bolt pistol, not actual apothecaries obviously as modelled. In the middle here we have an apothecary and a Primaris apothecary, and then also to the right of them we have another troop choice of intercessors. The captain of the squad has got a power sword modelled there, no other upgrades at all. Also right over here on this side we have a squad of 3 aggressors with the Flamestorm gauntlets, and then finally over here, last bunch of models, 2 Contemptors here, one with the Mortis and one with the Multi-Melter, and behind them we have a Redemptor Dreadnought with the Plasma add-on and the small Gatling cannon on this side. And then finally, as a flyer choice, we have a Sassus Assault Ram ready to come in. This is going to be a standard battalion. I couldn't quite fill out the Planet Striker attacker formation because I haven't got enough fast attack, so I went with a normal detachment. So that is my 2,200 points. We'll now see what Daryl's bought for his Admech. And here is 2,200 points of Admech, led by Belisarius Call. So we'll start in the middle here with him.
Yeah, so obviously Belisarius Call, he's my Warlord today. He's got the Warlord trait, Static Psalm Cold,
okay.
So extend his Aura's ability. Next to him I've got my Tech Priest Dominus, so he's modelled with an Eradication Ray and a Phosphor Serpenter. And then just in front of them, little Tech Priest engines here that you can see there.
Fine, then over in front of them.
So I have my first troop choice, which is Scoprions Vanguard. So I've got 2 normal guys, a Vanguard Alpha, and then 2 with Plasma Calendars.
Okay, over on the left here.
So there I've got my Cataphrone Destroyers, and they are armed with heavy grav cannons. And so there's just 3 of those today. Oh, I'm hoping to get some more fairly soon because they look really nice. Yeah. And then just behind those,
yeah, we have
got the Iron Stride Ballistari with 2 twin-linked Cognis las cannons.
Lovely. And we're going to sweep over to this side of the board, so we come to the middle here.
Got my Castellan robots. I've kitted them out with the fists, the melee weapons, and they each have a Phosphor Blaster mounted on the shoulder, and I've given them the Cybernetica Data Smith in the front as well.
So just highlight the front down there, and then to the right of these guys at the front here.
Got my Scoprions Rangers, and so just 4 ordinary Rangers and then 1 with a Transuranic Arquebus.
Lovely, and then just behind them,
2 of our Dune Crawlers, and I've gone for the Neutron Laser with the Cognis Heavy Stubber underneath for each one. And
then finally we've got a super heavy auxiliary detachment added on.
Yep, so that's my Knight Crusader, so it's the Gun Knight. See how he does. He's done pretty well in the past. But
lots of guns. Yeah. So that's the 2,000 points of Admech. We'll now move on to see how the mission is made up. So as we join the end of deployment here on this battlefield, as you can see here, the Admech were able to deploy anywhere on the board because that is the rule of the Planet Strike mission we're playing, Planetfall. So just to give a little overview of how the mission works, essentially there's 6 objectives on the board, and I'll just go through them quickly. We've got 1 here. We've also got 1 in this crater over here. We've got 1 hiding back here. We have 1 in the middle down here with the Emperor, or False Emperor, I don't know, depending on what this planet's after. We've got 4 over here, and we have number 1 up on that platform there. And basically, whoever's got the most of them at the end of the game scores the more victory points. So you have to be within 3 inches like normal, and that will give you your scoring units. There's also Slay the Warlord. And that's it for scoring, nothing else really, so pretty simple on that front. However, I, as the attacker, am going to spend 2 stratagems here, or well, 3 stratagem points, but do 2 of them. So I've got Heavy Duty Drop, which is going to enable me to take one of my non-infantry / fly units and make them into an orbital drop unit, so they can come in within 6 inches of anything on the board. And I'm also going to do Rapid Drop Assault, which means I can automatically put D3 of my units in instead of rolling for them, so that'd be quite useful just to get stuff onto the board. However, we do have to resolve some firestorm attacks, so what we're going to do is we're going to do them on camera, but I'm going to just add these up and then we'll come back in a minute and go through the results. So before I start to allocate my firestorm attacks, I'll just show you where I have placed my markers. We have number 6 is down here, number 5 is down here. Number 1 is over here. Number 2 is in there. Number 3 is up there. And also I think 4 is just snuck in there. The criteria was to leave the 9 inches apart from another Firestorm marker. And then basically I roll a number of dice, which is going to be 6 in this particular case, and then anything that's near one of those markers within 3 inches takes D6 mortal wounds. However, Daryl is about to add some modifications to this using the stratagems.
I am indeed. So first of all, I'm going to do targets and jammers.
Okay.
Spending 2 command points to move 1 Firestorm location up to 2d6 in any direction.
Okay, so it's how many inches is that going to be, Daryl?
So it will be. Let's actually roll that rather than drop that.
Oh, 11 inches. That's probably saved something. So what one are you going to move?
Ooh. I think it's going to have to be this middle one.
Okay.
It's hitting so much stuff.
So there's a tape measure there if you want to move it?
Absolutely. 11 inches.
I'm presuming you're going to come out here somewhere.
Yeah, let's try and get that away.
That's definitely out of range of everything. So that is now pretty much irrelevant. Was there another one you wanted to do? Or or was that it?
I will spend 1 more command point.
So that's 3 command points down.
So down to 5 already at the start of the game for foxholes on this one up here.
So up there, foxholes on there.
So I halve the number of mortal wounds rounding down for that unit.
And obviously,
the infantry units.
The other thing is if Daryl also goes to ground, I think that pretty much negates the attacks, I think, if he wants to, but obviously that negates the point of going to ground. So we'll now, I've got 6 of these to go, so basically what we're doing here is we're rolling 6 dice, and then that particular number is hit for D6 wounds, or D3 depending on what you do. So here we go. So we've got 3 on number 1. We've got 1 on 4, which is actually out of the way, so we won't worry about that one. Then we've got 1 on 5 and 6. So 6 is actually just in front of us, so we'll do that one here. So that takes, this unit here takes D6 mortal wounds, so I'll just roll that there. So 2.
Okay, so one of the Castellans has been weakened.
That's fine, so that's there. And then we've got number 5, which is actually over here next to the Knight. So the Knight and the Destroyers are taking D6 wounds each. So the Destroyers here have taken 3. That's 1 dead. And the Knight, come on, big number, has taken 3 also. Okay.
So with the Knight, because I've seen counter 21, I will count upwards.
Now,
wounds.
the very bad thing for the Striders over here is they've got 3 D6 wounds going on them.
Yeah, I could lose these.
That's 12, 13, 14, 15 wounds.
Bear with me 1 moment.
We'll be back in 1 second. And yes, that was plenty enough wounds to destroy both of them, as they only had 6 each. So that was quite a heavy casualty list at the back here. So we'll now move on into the first turn. So at the end of the movement phase for Scorpions in turn 1, because the attacker does always go first in this one, essentially I rolled my D3 for confirmed drops, and that gave me basically these 3 here. So they have walked on. I then rolled 3+ for everything else. So down here the aggressors came on along with the Primaris Apothecary, and also right at the back end of the board here the Redemptor, who got his heavy duty drop, has dropped in at the back here, along with Severin, the Librarian, the Apothecary, and a 10-man tactical squad. So quite a lot on the board. Obviously we're going to get our first turn of shooting here. We need to make it count, I think, because there's a lot of firepower going to come back at us. Not all of our stuff's obviously on the board yet. So we'll come back with Scorpions, turn 1, shooting. So at the end of turn 1, Psychic and shooting. In the Psychic phase for the Scorpions over here, Severin put Might of the Heroes on to the Dreadnought here. He also did a smite along with the other Librarian, who also smited over to this squad here, and also the Dune Corridor, who took I think 2 wounds out in total of everything, including from the shooting, which came in from the Redemptor. Really not that brilliant for shooting. However, on the flip side over here, we had all the aggressors firing to the robots here, along with Cullen, who actually did the majority of the damage. He fired all his Hunter Killer missiles and his twin assault cannon, and he wiped out one of them. Then backed up by the multi-melter of the other Contemptor in the middle here, took out another one. However, the other robot has survived unscathed thus far. So the Scorpions not doing too bad in their first turn. However, I expect a fusillade of fire to come back in their direction and probably thin them out a little bit. So we'll head on into turn 1 for the Admech. So as the Admech had commenced their turn 1, pretty much no movement in the end. Down here, the robot has decided to direct attention towards the aggressors, probably quite wise, just to get them off the board. And the Cataphrone destroyers have turned around to look at the group of Marines that dropped in on the back line here. There's also some healing of wounds here, so the crawler here is back up to full health, and the Knight took a flat 1 increased for one of the rules they have as well. So we'll now move on into the shooting phase and see what happens. And just before we go into the shooting phase, over here the robot has flipped to the Conqueror protocol. However, Darrow has opted to pay a command point right now to switch it immediately instead of waiting the normal turn. So we'll see how that pans out in the fight phase shortly. So as the Admech open up with absolute devastating fire, over on this side of the board, the Redemptor Dreadnought has been destroyed. It did blow up, however I re-rolled to make sure it didn't blow up because obviously there's quite a lot of characters over here. That was some combination fire from both of the crawlers over here, and then finished off by one of the Cataphrone destroyers here with a nice, I think it was the
heavy
grav cannon shot that finished him off. Over here, the aggressors have been whittled down to one actual unit left, and that was from basically the squadron here and up here, and I think also the pistol from one of the guys from the Data Smith, which has killed him. And then the Knight absolutely opened fire at Cullen, taking him down to 8 wounds. He also fired a couple of extra shots in this direction and killed off a couple more Marines in the back line here. So we'll now move on into the combat phase for the Admech. So as turn 1 finishes for the Admech here, during the combat phase, the robot here absolutely decimated the remaining aggressor and then consolidated into the Apothecary, who valiantly fought back and did a wound but didn't actually get through its armour, sadly. So that is the end of turn 1 for the Admech. We'll now move on to turn 2 for the Scorpions. So at the end of the movement phase for Scorpions in turn 2, down here, we have had Cullen and his 2 Dreadnought friends moving up the board towards the centre, because that is exactly where they are needed at the moment. Up here, this Intercessor squad has dropped in behind enemy lines, just about able to get on the pad here, aiming for this squad and this other HQ sitting back here. And then on this side, the beleaguered and shot up standard tactical squad has decided to make a move towards the crawlers. It could be suicide, but to be honest, I think they think they're better in combat against them than shooting them. Finally, on this side of the board, the Cast Assault Ram has come in and aimed its gun firmly towards the Knight here. So we'll see if it can put some wounds down it, and we'll see what happens in turn 2 for Scorpions shooting in Psychic. So as the Scorpions finish their shooting in Psychic turns, on this side regarding Psychic, we had Severin and the Librarian here both use Smite and onto the Dune Crawler here, along with a Melter gun as well, so that has now taken 9 wounds. Into the centre of the board here, the Knight took a few shots from the Flyer here, but didn't do the majority of the damage. However, over here, the Melter gun here fired into the Knight as well, and that's given a total of 10 wounds to that done now, which is not bad. Cullen attempted to kill the Data Smith here, taking 3 wounds off it, and also over here this Keris assault gun shot into him and didn't do anything additional to it, which is pretty bad really. Up on the platform over here, all of the guys that could shoot at the leader here did do, and it's given him down to 5 wounds. And then a couple of the squad here were taken off by the 2 that were closer to him. So we'll now head on to the assault phase. We do have a couple of assaults to go, and let's see what happens. So the Scorpions end their combat phase in turn 2. Down here, Unfortunately, the remaining Primaris Apothecary was completely wiped out by many fists to the face. Over here, the Dunecrawler was actually taken out in combat by the Sergeant with his chainsword, cutting through those final 2 wounds quite effectively. However, it did blow up and take 3 of them down. We didn't do any damage back to them, I think 1 apiece, but I think they're going to be healed next turn possibly. Also up on the platform over here, a fight erupted out between the Skitarii and the Priest. The Priest actually killed 1 of the Primaris, however the Skitarii didn't manage to kill anything against us. So, nothing too horrendous. However, we're now going to enter turn 3 for the Admech. So as turn 2 for the Admech commences, quite a bit of movement happened here. We had one of the robots head towards Cullen at the moment, obviously trying to put his fists into him as well. On this side of the board we had the Knight move onto the objective and I'll just get himself obviously in range of there, and then also this Destroyer has snuck a little bit closer towards the array of characters at the back over here. And also Cool has decided to come across and deal with this remaining squad. Obviously they still have this problem up on this platform as well to deal with, but we'll see what happens as we go into the turn 2 shooting for Admech. As the Admech end their turn 2 shooting, down here we can see that Cullen has been quite badly wounded, down to 6 wounds, and also this other Contemptor here is down to 2 wounds, only barely hanging on with a few 6-ups from Cullen's aura there. And that was from a lot of source over here, but mainly from the Knight and also the Onagor Dunecrawler over here, taking off the majority of the wounds of those 2 targets, so probably relying on the robot here to finish Cullen off if possible. The Assault Ram here managed to take 4 wounds, so he's down to 10. That was mainly from these little chaps in here. The Cataphrone here shot in and did nothing actually in the end because he whiffed all his attacks. So that's all the shooting for the Admech. We're now going to go on into combat because I believe over here we'll have a little round of fisticuffs here. We'll see who comes out on top of that shortly. At the end of turn 2 Admech, the combat phase is finally finished here, and the robot unfortunately got pretty much ripped up by Cullen in the end. Didn't have any runes back to him either, with some pretty bad rolling to hit. However, on this side, Cool literally minced his way through the last 2 tactical guys, and now Severin and the Librarian are looking at him a bit like, uh-oh, have to see what we can do to stop him. There might be some psychic shenanigans going on. This combat over here actually ended up in basically a wound apiece, so nothing really spectacular. It's probably going to be a bit of a slugfest over there because neither side have got the kind of combat prowess to hit through the amount of wounds that's required. So that's the end of turn 2 for Admech. We're now going to go to turn 3 for the Red Scoprions. So as turn 3 movement for the Scorpions begins, down here the Cestus Assault Ram has made a move up in flight mode to get alongside the Knight and also put himself in position for shooting other things. Obviously there's still a 10-man squad in there, so maybe you'll be able to drop them in the following turn to get an objective. This squad is obviously still in combat. Over here, the 3 Dreadnoughts are still moving up the field. However, the central one here severely crippled, only able to move 4 inches. Cullen, in a similar state, only able to move 5, but he's got a target reasonably nearby for him. So we'll see how he competes with that. And obviously this Knight here has moved up his full 9 and is heading towards the central location. Things are getting a little bit tight here. I think a lot hinges on this Knight here in the middle. So we'll see what happens in the psychic and shooting phases for the Scorpions. So the end of turn 3 shooting in psychic for the Scorpions. Moving on to the psychic phase over here. Severin and the Librarian smited and also put Might Heroes on themselves. The smites did a couple of wounds on Cool, but nothing too serious. The Might Heroes actually perilled and took off 3 wounds from Severin, leaving him on 3. Onto the shooting phase over here, we had the Cestus Assault Ram take a few shots at this Knight, taking it 3 wounds away, and then in the centre here, underneath the 2 Firestorm batteries, managed to kill the last Cataphrone Destroyer. Over this side of the board, we had the Datasmith die to an absolute flame barrage from Cullen. All the other weapons from these 3 dreadnoughts was directed into this unit in the middle here, and they took out 3 of their number, so they're pretty much whittled down to non-threatening numbers. We'll now move on into the assault phase, because I think over here we have Severin lining up a charge against Cool, and we'll see who comes out on top of that shortly. So at the end of turn 3 for the Scoprions, we had 2 combats to resolve. Down here we had Cool versus Severin. Severin lost heavily by taking 2 wounds, and actually he whiffed all of his attacks by getting 1s to hit. Pretty pathetic really for someone of his calibre. I think he must have left his axe on the battle barge. Over here, however, the Primaris managed to whittle through the Tech Priest Dominus up there, wiping off the board. It was actually made some of the damage with his power sword, however, so so kudos to him, I should say. That is the end of turn 3 for the Scorpions. We're now going to move on to turn 3 for the Admech and see if they can hit back. So as turn 3 for the Admech finishes in the shooting phase, there was no movement because everything was where it should be. The Knight fired into various locations, however, a lot of really lucky saves from my part and some pretty low hit rolls has meant that no wounds were dealt out by the Knight at all. Also over here, no, actually saying that, over here, no, nothing really shot other than the Cestus Assault Ram and over at Cullen, so actually nothing really was dealt out in the end.
It's the Plasmas. They took
Plasmas.
one of the Contemptors, that was it.
Oh, that was it, sorry, the Contemptor in the middle, who did blow up as well, but didn't do too much damage with his wounding. So that is all of the shooting. We'll now move on into assault phase, so I think we've got 1 assault over here that needs to be resolved, and let's see what happens. So at the end of turn 3 assault, down here, Cool has actually destroyed Severin, so not particularly good for the Scorpions on this side of the battlefield. However, as things didn't quite go their way in the shooting phase, I think it probably even. So we'll now move on into turn 4 for the Red Scorpions and see if they can finish off that elusively non-dying Knight. So at the end of turn 4 movement for the Scorpions, there has been a little bit of moving down the side of the board. We've got Cullen, who has moved up as much as he can with his wound counter where it is at the moment. And this this Contemptor has run up quite a long distance to get in range of these 2 squads in the centre here to try and get that objective. The Intercessors here have moved up to the edge of the platform to put as much firepower into this Doomcrawler as possible. I don't think it's going to do too much damage, but maybe they can get it bracketed if they're lucky. The actual Assessors decided to stay in HOV mode and then stay still to drop these troops off so they can get to this objective, but also so that he doesn't move and lose any firing ability against this Knight. And obviously Cool sitting here laughing from his last phase of killing Severin Loth. Hopefully we can do something about him. We shall see. Anyway, on to the shooting phase as we have no psychic left. So at the end of turn 4 shooting for the Scorpions, and the Knight took the bulk of the fire there. He is down to 2 wounds left now, so he's on his last legs, but we'll see if he can survive another turn or not. That was basically from Cullen and... Actually, no, Cullen and the Contemptor here, and the Cassis all shooting into him. And also the Melter from the squad, just put a pot shot on there to add a few wounds on it. However, we've now got a dangerous situation over with Cool about to come through here. Unfortunately, over here, the bolt rounds were not enough to do a lot of damage to the Crawler there, taking 1 wound off it. So, there's a little assault here to do, so let's see what happens in turn 4 assault for the Scorpions. So at the end of turn 4 for the Scorpions down here, the remaining Contemptor charged in and destroyed that troop squad there, sitting in front of that lowly Tech Priest there, ready to hopefully open him up nicely for the end of the game. So we'll now move on into turn 4 for the Admech. So as Admech turn 4 movement comes to an end, the only real bit of movement over here is Cool coming towards this squad of Tactical Marines. Hopefully easy prey for him. Nothing else has actually moved, bar the Dune Crawler over here to get in range of that objective. So let's move on into the shooting and see what the Admech can pull out the bag. So at the end of shooting turn 4 for the Admech, and down here Cullen is now limping along on 1 wound. That was all done by the Dune Crawler over here, who got a good shot off and did a minimum of 3 damage to him eventually. Other than that, nothing else really inflicted, other than I think 3 Marines got atomised by the solar atomizer from Cool, so they're about to ready to receive his charge shortly, and we'll see what happens there. So we're going to move on to the assault phase, turn 4 for the Admech. So at the end of turn 4 for the Admech, combat has finished, and down here, Cool managed to not take anyone out in the end, I think, in the end. Oh no, sorry, he did kill 2. However, in a slightly more interesting twist, the Knight didn't manage to kill the Ram. However, the Ram managed to hit back and kill the Knight, which then exploded, took 3 wounds off the Knight and killed, I think it was 4 of my guys, and then also I think took a couple of wounds off Cool. So that wasn't particularly brilliant for either of us. Obviously we'll see what happens the next turn. In the middle over here, the Contemptor wiped out the Priest there, so he's finally secured that objective in the middle, so it's quite tight at the moment. We're now going to move on to turn 5 for the Scoprions and see if they can consolidate on what they managed to do last turn. So at the start of turn 5 for the Scorpions, down here they have backed out of combat with Cool to get towards that objective there, but also to leave him open to being shot at by the Ram, who is staying still again. Probably unwise considering Cool was right outside him, but it depends on what he decides to do next turn. Over here, the only other bit of movement was Cullen moving up the field, just trying to get a bit closer. However, he's severely crippled and I don't think he's going to be involved in much of the rest of the game. I don't think anything's actually in shooting range either. So let's move on to the shooting phase and see what happens. So at the end of turn 5, shooting for the Scorpions, there was a little bit of damage done to Cool down here. He has now taken 5 wounds, so he needs 8 in total to die. The Crawler over here took nothing in the end from the bolt fire from over here, and obviously this also helped to kill Cool a little bit, so we need to possibly charge into him. We'll see what happens to the Ram in a second. However, that is the end of the shooting phase. We'll now move on to the combat. Okay, so at the end of turn 5 for the Scorpions, the Ram did not make it into combat with Cool over here, so that is not good on our part, because he's probably going to take the full brunt of the shooting in a second. However, we're now pretty much over to the end of turn 5 here, and we're going to head on into turn 5 for Admech and see what happens. So turn 5 movement for Admech, and down here, Cool has moved towards the Marine squad down here, trying to secure up the objective, and obviously you've got the Ram here as an optional target. The Crawler has just moved over a little bit further. He was in range, but just want to make sure he's definitely on that objective number 3 there. That is all he's got left to do.
Well, might as well heal Cool while we're on camera.
And Cool's going to...
D3.
So 3 wounds back for Cool, so he's actually much more strong than he was a minute ago. We'll head on into what we're going to do is shooting and the combat as a 1 round roundup, because we've only got 2 things to go, and let's see what happens. Okay, so at the end of turn 5 for Admech, down here, Cool is actually back down 3 wounds. That was after an overwatch from a melter gun. However, he did manage to wipe out the entire squad there and put himself into combat with the Cast Assault Ram. Unfortunately over here, Cullen met his demise at the hands of the Crawler over here with a very nicely an ion shot, I think, wasn't it? That took him out. So he's gone, and that's a Warlord kill, obviously, and that means Daryl's 1 point up for that particular respect. However, at the moment, it's the end of the game, but we'll just see if we roll to continue. So Daryl's going to roll here, and we do not, because it's only a 1, so we're back in a minute with a wrap-up. So as the smoke dies down on this battlefield between the Scorpions and Admech, the scores are actually in now. And due to the early end of that game, it ended up being 6 to the Scorpions and 4 to the Admech. Very, very close game. I scored 6 because I was holding 2 objectives, this one here and the one underneath the Contemptor there, which was 3 each. Daryl was holding this objective here, however, was not holding any other objectives, but got Warlord kill, making his total up to 4. That was actually a really fun game, very close towards the end there. Daryl, any particular moments you liked, or any favourite units of yours that were...
It's a tough one. Tough one. I think they all did reasonably well.
Yeah.
I'm a bit disappointed with the Honour Guards, to be honest with you.
Yeah, these chaps are there.
I think the dice was just not in their favour. They kept rolling ones in their D3 shots. So. That made a massive impact. A cool... I mean,
he's brilliant. He just doesn't die.
I didn't use him for his full strength, I'll admit, when re-rolling the ones with everything around him. And I definitely think next time I'd have to bring an army that kind of suits that a bit more. Yeah, fair enough. No, it's been good fun. I haven't busted these up for a while, so...
Yeah, no, it was good to see him on the channel here. And for myself, I'm going to go with Cullen, who just literally would not die until the last turn, pretty much. He walked up that board just taking shot after shot after shot, and he also dished out a fair amount of punishment himself, so quite happy with him. But yeah, so that's pretty much the end of the game. However, just before I go, I'd like to mention thank you very much to Game Mat EU for sending out this mat to us. Really love it, so be sure to check them out. And also to our other sponsors, Goblin Gaming. Please check them out. Use the link in the description to buy anything. Directly supports us as a channel. And also, I'll just say they're a top company, really. Really good customer service as well. Other than that, this is myself, Tom from BlackToad Studio, and Daryl. And we'll see you soon.